Welcome to HFY Fiction Journey. If you enjoy exciting sci-fi stories, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's dive into today's story. After a long day of exploring the galaxy in my spaceship, all I wanted was a relaxing shower back at my space station. The endless stars and planets, the constant hum of the engines, and the vast silence of space had left me exhausted. As I stepped into the warm water, letting it soothe my tired muscles, I closed my eyes, savoring the tranquility. That's when I heard it. A strange noise, faint but unmistakable, cutting through the hum of the station systems. My eyes snapped open, and to my astonishment, there she was, a beautiful alien girl standing right in front of me, staring at me with wide, curious eyes. It took me a second to understand what was happening. The absurdity of the situation left me speechless. Who was she? How had she gotten in here? This was my private space. Yet here she was, standing confidently in the shower as if it were the most normal thing in the universe. Panic and embarrassment rushed through me, and I quickly tried to cover myself with my hands. "What are you doing here? How did you get in?" I stammered, trying to hide the mix of emotions swirling within me. Shock, confusion, and even a touch of fear. Her presence was both surreal and unnerving. The alien girl tilted her head slightly, her expression calm, unbothered by my panic. Her large, luminous eyes sparkled with innocent wonder. They were unlike anything I had ever seen before. Her skin was a soft pastel blue that seemed to shimmer in the dim light of the shower, and her delicate, pointy ears twitched slightly, as if listening to the sounds around us. She smiled, a small, innocent grin that seemed to ease some of my tension. "I saw you from outside, and I was curious," she said, her voice soft and melodic. "I've never seen a human before. You look different from the others." Her words only added to my confusion. The outside of the station was supposed to be secure, and I hadn't picked up any ships or life forms nearby during my entire day of exploration. Yet here she was, as though she had slipped through the station's defenses with ease. It was unsettling, but she didn't seem hostile, just curious. There was an odd sincerity in her gaze, and despite the awkwardness of the situation, I couldn't help but feel a little flattered by her curiosity. No one had ever looked at me quite like that before, as though I were some rare and fascinating creature. The embarrassment of being caught in such a vulnerable moment slowly faded, replaced by a strange fascination of my own. She was unlike any alien I had ever encountered, and despite the situation, I couldn't deny that she was incredibly beautiful in her own unique way. Still, I couldn't shake off the surprise. "But how did you get in here?" I pressed, trying to steer the conversation back to something more practical. She blinked, as if my question didn't entirely register. "The doors aren't difficult to bypass," she replied nonchalantly, as if breaking into a space station was an everyday occurrence for her. "I've been watching you for a while. You seem interesting." Her candidness was baffling. My station wasn't supposed to be an open invitation, but she spoke as though it were no big deal. I glanced around, half expecting to see other intruders lurking in the shadows, but there was no one else. It was just the two of us. "Watching me?" I repeated, my mind racing. The idea of being observed, being studied by this alien girl, was both unnerving and strangely compelling. What had she seen? What did she think of me? Her eyes gleamed with a mischievous sparkle, and she stepped closer, her bare feet making no sound against the smooth surface of the floor. "You're different. I wanted to understand," she said, her voice full of curiosity. Despite the surreal situation, I could sense no ill intent from her. Her curiosity felt genuine, and her presence, while unexpected, wasn't threatening. The initial shock was wearing off, and I found myself oddly intrigued. What did she mean by different? What did she want to understand? As the water from the shower continued to cascade down, I realized this was no ordinary encounter. I had set out to explore the far reaches of space, but I never expected that something, or someone, would be exploring me in return. As I tried to gather my thoughts and regain my composure, it became painfully clear that the alien girl and I were separated by a huge communication barrier. She communicated in a series of melodic tones and rhythmic clicks that I couldn't understand. In contrast, I was limited to simple gestures and facial expressions to convey my intentions. It was a surreal situation. Two beings from entirely different worlds trying to make sense of each other without a common language. I awkwardly motioned toward the door, indicating that I wanted her to leave the bathroom so I could finish my shower in peace. My gestures were simple, even clumsy, but clear enough, or so I thought. However, the alien girl seemed entirely unfazed by my request. She stayed in the room, her wide, curious eyes fixed on me. I sighed, resigning myself to the fact that she had no intention of leaving. As I stood under the warm water, I could feel her presence keenly. It was unnerving at first. This strange, silent observer with no clear motives or explanation for her behavior. I tried to focus on the water, cascading over me, blocking out the fact that an alien was quietly watching me shower. It was difficult to ignore her, but I continued, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy in a completely abnormal situation. After a few minutes, I finally turned off the water and reached for a towel. To my surprise, just as my hand wrapped around the soft fabric, the alien girl stepped forward. Without a word, she gently took the towel from my grasp. I froze, unsure of how to react. Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, there was an unspoken understanding. She gestured for me to remain still, and though I didn't fully understand why, I complied. She began to dry me off, her movements slow and deliberate. Her touch was unexpectedly gentle, almost nurturing. There was warmth in her hands, a tenderness that contrasted starkly with the strangeness of the situation. I had no idea why she was helping me, but I sensed she wasn't trying to harm or intrude. Despite the fact that we couldn't communicate with words, there was a deeper connection forming. Her actions seemed to say something words never could. The language barrier between us remained vast and impenetrable, but her care spoke to a level of understanding that transcended verbal communication. She was trying to bridge the gap, using her actions to convey empathy and a desire for connection. I stood there, perplexed by the alien girl's behavior, but no longer uncomfortable. The initial shock and confusion had melted away, replaced by a sense of calm. We couldn't understand each other's language, but that no longer seemed to matter. In the end, it wasn't about the words we couldn't speak. It was about the silent bond forming between us, a bridge across the divide of our two worlds, built on shared presence and simple gestures. As the alien girl finished drying me off, she motioned for me to follow her out of the bathroom. Still in shock from the recent events, I wrapped the towel around my waist and hesitantly followed her into the main living area of my space station. The sterile, metallic environment of the station contrasted with the warmth of the strange being's presence. Her skin shimmered faintly under the artificial lights, a reminder that she was not of this world, at least not mine. I had never encountered a being like her before, and yet there was something strikingly familiar about her actions. To my amazement, as soon as we entered the main room, the alien girl began mimicking me. At first, it was subtle, the way I held my arms or the small sounds I made as I moved around the station. But soon it became clear that she was deliberately imitating my gestures, expressions, and even the sounds of my voice. This was no coincidence. She was trying to communicate. Curiosity replaced my initial caution. I waved my hand in front of her, and she did the same. I raised an eyebrow, and she copied my expression. The more gestures I made, the more she mirrored them with remarkable accuracy. It was as if she were learning at an accelerated pace, trying to bridge the gap between us. I was fascinated by her ability to mimic human behavior so quickly. Each time I moved or made a sound, she absorbed the information, testing her understanding with careful precision. It was more than just imitation. It was a beginning of communication. There was an undeniable eagerness in her bright alien eyes, as if she was as curious about me as I was about her. Her movements were fluid, graceful even, and the more we interacted, the more I realized that perhaps she wasn't so different after all. I decided to take another step in our strange dance of communication. From the small pantry in the station, I retrieved some of my food rations. Though I had no idea she could eat human food, I offered her some of the prepackaged meals and a bottle of water. To my surprise, she accepted them enthusiastically. She took a careful bite of one of the protein bars, her face lighting up with delight as she tasted the unfamiliar food. The soft hums and gentle chirps she made seemed to express her approval, and I couldn't help but smile. Encouraged by her positive reaction, I handed her more items to sample, and each time, her responses were similar, joyful and filled with wonder. Over the next few minutes, we continued our simple exchanges, offering food, mimicking gestures, and sharing expressions. Bit by bit, we built the foundation of a shared understanding despite the vast differences between us. As I watched her, I realized that I was no longer just observing an alien. I was forging a connection with her, however primitive it might have been. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of discovery, not just of her, but of the possibility that we could learn from each other. Even across galaxies, we might not be so alone after all. Over the next few days, Lisa, the alien girl, and I spent countless hours together exploring the marvels of the galaxy. The vastness of space seemed to pull us closer, and despite the profound differences in our cultures, languages, and even biology, we shared a deep connection. It was a bond that transcended any of the barriers I had once imagined between beings from such distant corners of the universe. Through our time together, I learned that Lisa came from a distant planet, a world of peace and technological advancement that far outstripped anything humans had achieved. Her society, as she described it, was deeply committed to knowledge, curiosity, and harmony. It was clear that this mindset had shaped her personality. Lisa was naturally curious about everything, especially about Earth and the other planets we visited. Her questions were sharp, filled with genuine wonder, and her thirst for understanding was contagious. This mirrored my own desire to explore and learn about the unknown, and it became the foundation of our friendship. Though we initially had difficulty communicating with words, Lisa possessed a remarkable gift. She could sense and understand emotions through a form of telepathy. At first, it was unsettling, knowing that someone could perceive what I felt before I even expressed it. But her approach was gentle and considerate. Through this connection, we found ourselves able to bypass the limitations of language. Our thoughts and feelings could flow freely between us, enabling us to communicate on a level I had never experienced before. We spent hours discussing our respective worlds, each conversation more fascinating than the last. I shared stories of Earth, its diverse cultures, the challenges humanity faces, and the beauty of the natural world. Lisa, in turn, painted vivid pictures of her home planet. She described landscapes that seemed pulled straight from dreams, shimmering blue oceans under twin suns, cities woven into the fabric of nature, and a society built on mutual respect and empathy. Her civilization's advancements in technology were not driven by competition or a desire for power, but by a shared goal of improving the quality of life for everyone. Their approach to progress was based on collaboration, compassion, and an understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. As the days went by, I found myself drawn to Lisa in ways I couldn't entirely explain. There was a grace about her that was captivating. Her movements were fluid, and her presence exuded a calmness that seemed to envelop everything around her. But it was more than just her physical beauty or intelligence. It was her profound empathy and the way she could make anyone feel seen and understood. She had a rare ability to make me feel like I was the only person who mattered in that moment. There was a warmth in her telepathic presence, a kindness that flowed through her every action. In time, I began to realize that Lisa had changed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. She opened my mind to new possibilities, not just in the sense of intergalactic travel, but on a deeply personal level. I had always considered myself a wanderer, someone who thrived on solitude and exploration. But Lisa showed me that there was joy in sharing those experiences with someone else, in building a connection that transcended the boundaries of space and species. Our bond continued to deepen, and as I spent more time with her, I knew that our meeting had been no accident. The galaxy is vast, filled with countless stars and possibilities. But among all of them, I had found something truly extraordinary in Lisa. The connection we shared wasn't bound by words or even by time. It was something timeless, something that would remain with me no matter where my journey took me next. The moment had come. The stars shimmered beyond the platform of my space station, their silent beauty a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing within me. I had been preparing for this farewell for some time, but nothing could truly prepare me for the moment I would have to say goodbye to Lisa, a companion, a confidant, and more than anything, someone who had become a profound part of my journey through the galaxy. We stood side by side, gazing out at the endless expanse before us. The galaxy stretched out in front of us, as vast and uncharted as the feeling swirling in my chest. I turned to look at her, searching for the words that could possibly capture the gravity of this moment. The stars, usually cold and distant, now felt closer, almost as though they were offering us a fleeting comfort in this inevitable goodbye. "I will miss you," I finally said, the words sounding almost too simple for the depth of what I felt. There was so much more I wanted to say, but it all got tangled in my thoughts, impossible to articulate. Lisa's response was a warm, understanding smile. She reached out, gently taking my hand in hers, and in that touch, I felt a wave of emotions radiate through our telepathic connection. Her sadness mirrored mine, but there was also an undercurrent of acceptance. We both knew that this farewell was necessary, that our paths had to diverge. At least for now. We will always be connected, no matter where we go, she whispered, her voice a soothing balm against the ache in my heart. Her eyes, bright and full of unshed tears, reflected the universe we were both a part of, vast, mysterious, and full of possibility. In that moment, her words wrapped around me like a promise, a bond that transcended the physical distance that was about to separate us. I nodded, my throat tightening as I struggled to keep my emotions in check. Lisa had been by my side for what felt like a lifetime. Together, we had navigated the stars, exploring strange planets, encountering new species, and uncovering the secrets of the galaxy. But beyond all the adventures and discoveries, it was the bond we had formed that I cherished the most. A bond not bound by time or space, but something deeper, something that reached into the very core of who we were. As Lisa turned to board her ship, a part of me wanted to call her back, to ask her to stay just a little longer. But I knew I couldn't. This was her journey too, and she had her own path to follow. Watching her walk away was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. With each step she took, the reality of our separation sank in deeper. Her ship, sleek and silver against the backdrop of stars, awaited her. It was a ship built for the great expanse, for the kind of voyages that span light years. The moment she disappeared into her ship's interior, a profound sense of loss washed over me. I stood there, watching as her spacecraft lifted off, slowly disappearing into the vast expanse of space. The engine's hum faded, and soon Lisa was nothing more than a speck of light in the distance, one star among millions. I stayed on the platform long after she had gone, staring out at the stars. The silence of space pressed in around me, but it wasn't lonely. In some strange cosmic way, I still felt her presence with me. Our connection, as she had promised, would remain even if our paths diverged for now. There was a comfort in knowing that somewhere out there, she was watching the same stars, perhaps thinking of me as well. As I turned to leave, the weight of the goodbye settled, but so did a quiet hope. I knew that Lisa had changed my life in ways I couldn't fully understand yet. Though we were now separated by galaxies, I held on to the belief that our paths would cross again one day. In the endless reaches of the cosmos, anything was possible.